Hey everybody, Mr. OD here, back again for one of your exciting lessons that you guys really crave. You're interested, you love them. The idea of this next one is a little bit different here. This one's called Talk to the Camera, because we're going to flip this, and instead of us always holding the camera that way, shooting out and filming something, we're going to flip it the other direction. So let's get into it. I'm going to explain a little bit here for you. You can see the due date's going to be after we get back from Thanksgiving break here. And there's your due date. It's on the 2nd. And as usual, this is where you put your stuff. You're going to have a link to a video that you're going to make. And then there is going to be something on slide number 14, YouTube tutorial video kind of thing I want you to watch for a little bit. And just tell me 3 tips that you did here. Now, be careful. A lot of you sometimes are forgetting some of those other things. You're just making a video and throw it on there. Remember, there's other stuff that you need to do along the way. All right, so let's get into this idea. What's he talking about? Talking to the camera. Well, in the way right there. Talking to the camera could be a little bit more challenging than just filming a story, because you're trying to now talk directly to the audience. And much like my Bitmoji here doing this, how would you feel if people just when they put cameras in front of you and say, "Hey, how's it going?" Say hi to the camera. You generally feel a little what? Oftentimes we feel a little bit awkward. And it's human nature to feel that way. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm kind of one of the small percentage who doesn't like being filmed." No, you're in the majority. It's a little bit of the opposite to be able to feel people who crave wanting to be on camera. And the number one reason is this, in my scientific, I just made this up opinion. You don't know what to say. Because a normal conversation is fine, but if the thing is being recorded and filmed, now you have this, I don't know what I should really be saying or whatever. So there's some people who do it well. So let's talk about where you see this the most. What's the most common type of video where people sit there and look at the camera and just start talking? Think about this one for yourself. Scratch your goatee for a second. I can think of a couple. I think, in my opinion, the most common one is this. And what's this, everybody? It's the news, right? If somebody's going to be sitting there and telling you about, like, hey, today in the news, or, you flip on the news channel and all of a sudden people, they're talking directly what I'm doing right now to the lens, and having a conversation with them. And it's not the most easy, normal thing, because generally you're going to want to be able to look at yourself. So for, like, you can imagine if my screen is down here, but the camera's there, how many times do you see people doing, like lessons like these, and they're just sitting there talking like, "Hey everybody, so you're in a Zoom call," and they're not looking directly at the lens. It's one of the things that I've really wanted to try to be able to focus on, even back in our distance learning thing, is look directly here. Now for me, I actually have the lenses here where my finger is, but where that finger is, that's actually the viewfinder right off to the side of it. So I tend to see myself looking at me right over there. Do you see my eyes are off a little bit? I got little beady eyes. But where I should be looking is right there. And the reason being is that by looking directly at the lens, you think that lens is the eyeball of the viewer. And it's a little off-putting to be able to think about, not off-putting, but a little bit strange, because you kind of lose your train of thought about what you're talking to, because it's not normal. Usually when you talk to other humans, you see some head nods and moves. And even when you're looking at yourself, like in your Zoom call, you're like, okay, I can see me and my setting and surroundings, and you're thinking about all of that. So it's a little bit more different to stare directly at a lens. And like anything, you want to learn how to play basketball, or you want to learn how to paint. It takes practice. And so that's what we are going to do in all this. We're going to have some practice doing all this thing. And so there you go. The camera is going to be set up. It's going to shoot at you. Then the question you got to ask, like I said, is, what am I supposed to say? Because we're not just going to grab a camera and shoot and have you practice talking in there without knowing what to say. Now, let's say you practice and you have your words that you think you want to be able to say in this, but once you hit the record button, will you remember what to say? And it's the remembering that is a challenge. And there's basically 2 ways in which that you can do this. One, you can memorize the entire thing that I'm going to say, and I'm just going to talk with the lens and have a conversation, and I may forget a word or here too, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I don't have a script per se. I do have some notes off to the side on another screen that reminding me what to say. So if I look over here, I'm like, oh, remember what to say, like bullet points. And what that is a really nice way to be able to have it feel like it's a natural conversation. You'll have some of those. What was I going to say? Anyway, and you'll jump back on it. So it doesn't read and flow real well. The problem, of course, is that you may not get to all the things that you're going to say. You may have a plan of what needs to be said, and it doesn't follow that way. So it feels more natural, but two, it doesn't. You may not necessarily get to make it exactly how you wish. And the other option is to read it exactly as. But then you get this problem. You're staring down. So, hey, everybody, today, Rockland, in the news, the morning announcements, the bulletin, today, the French Club is meeting in V47 at lunch. So don't forget to bring your crepes. And you can see I try to look up every now and then, but it's not super natural. The better you can get at it is you look down a little bit and then you get up because you want to make eye contact with the lens. But you watch the regular news, they never look down. So the question is how do they do that? Well, here's the trick, everybody. The trick is that person who is there talking actually has the words written down for them. So for the sake of here, let's say there is, what if you take the camera that's pointing at you, but you put an iPad or a screen that is underneath the lens with the words there? You can see it says, "What's up? It's your boy OD." But the problem, though, is that those words are not in my line of sight. Those words are in the line of sight that are going up. And if my camera's over there, I can't see them. So how can we change that? And folks, this is going to go back to our special effects presentation that you did. Who did this group? Do you remember what this was? This was a pane of glass that is between the camera and whatever it is that you're filming, because the glass is invisible. And so this, of course, was called a matte painting. You paint on glass. And the reason I want you to focus that is that the idea is the property of glass, what glass can do. We can see through it. But when an interesting concept is that if you can change the angle here right now, it's going directly at a 90-degree angle. But what if you change the angle of the glass and you try to shoot this way? Then something interesting is going to happen. Let's go back to my diagram here. If you take a piece of glass, then anything that is down here, the light goes up, hits the glass, is reflected. You see a reflection back this direction if it's at that angle. But the weird part is the camera lens doesn't see that reflection because it's coming from a different angle. That angle's like this, your angle's like that. And then the magic, everybody, is the words then appear so this person can see them. It's really simple. So next thing you do is, to make it easier, you want to cover the whole thing up in black so to eliminate any other light. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have right there is a tool called a teleprompter. And that's it in essence. You have a camera, you have a device that's displaying words. It's going to bounce and hit a piece of glass. Thing is all covered up. And this is how you see the people in the news world talk. If they are saying word for word, not doing any ums and not making it up as they go. That's what we call a teleprompter. And here's what it looked like. Take a look at this thing. Another term here is an auto cue, but you can see what you do is you time the words. My hands are free. And it just says, hey, it's a very useful tool for making an otherwise engaging individual come across as stilted or boring. I am, of course, being ironic, but it's fair to say that it takes a surprising amount of skill to use properly. The key point is to remember that is, anyway, the words are going to scroll right through where the lens would be. You could change and determine the size of these texts, or the speed of it is the biggest thing, to be able to help you match the pattern about how fast you speak and such. Anyway, so that's the teleprompter, folks, and we're going to learn about the teleprompter. So there you go. Come on. This is what I mentioned in the opening slide. You're going to watch this tutorial here, not tutorial, some tips on how to use it from this guy named Justin. And I want you to watch this and write down 3 tips. Go back over there to slide number 1 and drop those 3 tips in there. There's that. All right, continuing on. Next, everybody. Well, no, we don't care about you, Justin. Well, we do. Anyway, we're going to have this as a class conversation. I want you to look at here. Here's a newsroom, and try to look at those 4 arrows on the right-hand side over here and wonder what those 4 things are all doing for the news host. Gotcha. So we'll have that conversation. This is what the news host looks from behind her viewpoint of the new studio. So we'll talk about this in class a little bit. Now, what about here? Here's President Obama talking, and if you've ever seen any of these speeches, you see these things. It's on a stand, and it's a piece of kind of like glass. It's a grayed out piece of glass. This is the same concept as a teleprompter. How do you think it's similar? Well, first off, you can imagine is that the words that he is saying will be displayed, and they're on either side, so he has the natural flow. He can look back and forth to the audience, and no matter which way he sees, he has the words at the corner of his eye, one way or another, because they're both moving. How is it different than a teleprompter? We'll talk about this one in class. There's a big difference. See if you can notice what it is. It's pretty noticeable. Anyway, so let's talk about the news reporters. Now, if you notice, like I said, some news reporters have to be able to just talk. Here's this reporter. She's out on location talking, and there's no teleprompter, just a camera and her. So the skill of being a journalist who's out there on camera telling the news has to be done using the stories that they have written and the knowledge like I'm doing right here. And some of you are like, that's not knowledge. I got you. Thanks a lot. But anyway, so let's take, for example, what the kids do here for every morning is that we do two different approaches. Sometimes the kids, if it is a longer, usually for our Thursday and Friday shows, they will be using a teleprompter. So here's Georgia using a teleprompter, and you can see her eyes are looking straight at us because she has written up her the script. It's sitting on an iPad in there. But on the other side, when we do our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, oftentimes the kids are just going to be, because these are going to be done much faster. And so here you can see Izzy. She has just written down her notes. She's working on the skill of having them down here and try to be able to have her eyes up. Check out the notes and then look up here. The much more traditional skill. All right. So in essence, folks, I got a question for you. Do you want to do that? We're always looking for folks to be able to help be the hosts for our show. Like I said in the beginning of this, not everybody always wants to be able to do it, but this lesson is designed to give you a taste and a flavor to see if that's something that you may be interested in. Some kids really have a desire to be on camera and other ones don't. So we're going to test it out, and everyone's going to give it a shot here. Using the teleprompter to see what that experience is like. And something in the back of your mind, start thinking, do I want to take video production 2 next year and then maybe 3 or 4 in the future to be able to be some of the, to be a host. You don't have to be a host to take video production 3 or 4, but those are the kids who do that. In my classes, there's 4 kids of all my classes who are the ones who are the hosts and such. And so we'll talk more about that later, but that's something that you can do. You don't have to do. Anyway. All right. So let's talk, besides news, what's some other times that you see people talking into that lens? Here's one of them, of course, which is still like news, but that's sports. You see sports all the time. So here's this sideline reporter talking about some football event before the game starts, and she's looking at the lens, having a conversation. Oftentimes what they'll be doing is they'll be having a conversation with somebody somewhere else, and you can see she is actually talking to somebody who's in a studio. They may ask her, hey, what's it like at the Niner game or the Tennessee game? And she's like, oh, the crowd's starting to show up and whatever. So she's having a dialogue with them back and forth. And so that is very similar to the journalist has to know their subject. Very important for you to be able to do this, much like me now here too. I got to know what I'm talking about. She knows her sports and such. All right. Another one that you maybe not necessarily think of, which is teachers love to show these things. A good old-fashioned, old-timey documentary. And so here is a nature documentary, and you'll sometimes you'll have a host in a documentary. Sometimes you don't see them at all. You'll just have a voiceover, and we're going to do a thing on voiceovers later. But here you have the host who is now talking to us, to the lens, teaching us about orangutans and how they like washing socks. I didn't know they like to wash socks. It's not part of their natural environment. But anyway, so great documentarian Richard Attenborough there. Now, the one that you're probably most familiar with, and you may have said in the beginning when I said, who looks at the camera? Everybody, it's who? It's who? Think about it. It's these folks, right? It's YouTubers. Okay, the YouTube generation, what you're used to most, these are the people who have made a trillion videos that are on YouTube, and they do this. They just talk to the audience. Now, each YouTuber is similar to like a news journalist in terms of what are they doing to have their words up there and they can flow and be natural. And there's those same two techniques. They're just got their ideas, their notes that are either written on a separate screen somewhere that they're just kind of hitting, or they may have a teleprompter and following along with it. And a good YouTuber, you wouldn't know. What they're trying to be able to do is, no matter what that technique is, they want to be able to sound and look like they're just having a conversation with you, talking about the makeup tips or talking about watching me play a whatever. Now, those ones are definitely, if you're going to be watching me do something like particularly a gamer YouTube, that they will not have a script at all because they're just reacting to the environment. But if you're going to be doing, let's say I'm going to show you how to be able to, go back to the makeup example or something like that, or a baking thing, that you're going to have your steps written along the way so you can refer back to them and such. There is another tip that we're going to learn a little bit later that YouTube has really run with, and it's now become a style that you expect it, and that is the entire the video is you're going to have a bunch of these things called jump cuts. I'm going to show you a couple here. Jump cuts going to start showing up. There's another one, and what happens is that when you see times when you have like a weird pause, I'm putting some fake pauses in here so you can kind of see them. What a YouTuber will do is now cut them, and it's called a jump cut. So it just goes from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's a way to be able to, so they don't have to keep re-recording over and over again. And although people back in the day, video editors would say never do that. Now they're like, oh, it's become a style in YouTube in which to be able to do this. All right, let's take a break real fast. I'm going to do a side track and type of conversation about YouTube. You're all familiar with YouTube. You watch it all the time. It has become such an important part of what people watch and how they watch, and it's changed so much. So first off, I want you to be able to do this here. I want you to click on that link there. Take about 5 minutes. I want you to watch this and tell me if you agree with these this news story that interviews these 5 teenagers about their viewing habits and why they're on YouTube and such. So take a quick pause and watch that for me. Okay, so we'll have a conversation about what you saw with that in class, but let's have a little conversation here about compare you to me. So this is me, not really me, but that's a photo, a life similar to me in the 1980s, of how I would watch television. And this is similar to what kids today watch on the right. So what do you think's changed from teens then to teens now? Think about similarities and differences. So first off, let's start about you all. So there's been a bunch of research on there about why YouTube has just blown up in its popularity in terms of how many, like you saw with those teenagers, how many kids are actually going out there and watching and spending more and more of their time watching. Like, look at this here. Its popularity, where did it go here? Let me jump over to here real fast. Has changed. It has changed the way in which that teenagers consume media. And by what I mean by that is watch videos. And here's a couple of reasons. First off, everybody now has a screen to themselves. Back in the day, there would be, you would maybe have one television in the house, but maybe a couple, but they would have to be shared and such. So now everybody has a screen that they carry with them. So they have their own screen. Second thing is that they can now, that screen is with them all the time. It's not necessarily in my house, in my bedroom, in the living room. The screen is 100% with me all the time. Another really interesting part about what has changed everything is who's producing the content. Back here in these days, who was producing the content? Those were companies that were designed to be able to say, we think that adults may like this, or little kids may like that, or teenagers may like this. And so that was all done with companies, and they did research and such and try to be able to decide what people will like and what they won't. Now, sometimes they were successful and sometimes they weren't. But now for here, this is the great equalizer in which that everybody makes content. And the content that is successful is easily noticed, or not easily noticed, is easily, you can tell what is successful. You may not understand why it's successful, but you can definitely tell it is because of two things: page counts and or view counts, and the like button. You see how much is on there. So just by those two, what we call metrics, we can decide if things are popular or not necessarily good or not. Like you can imagine some, parents and older folks may definitely question if what you are watching is good or not. And that's not really about that. This is about, is it successful or not? And you can see here, YouTube's everywhere, right? It is The programming is much broader. So that's the last piece of it, is that anybody can make the content. You can see it anywhere. You can see it anytime. And then also it's more content than anybody could ever really view. And so it ranges from just silly epic fail videos to tons of tutorials, makeup and baking, to gamers who are streaming. And so we just watched so many different sort of things that we didn't know that they were going to be super successful. For example, like, do we know Bob Ross was going to be hugely successful? Did we know watching um, uh, something to make just soothe you and calm you at the end of the day? We didn't know that Office reruns would be huge, although that's not YouTube. Hold on. But so take this story, for example, here. Take a quick pause here and check out this news story here about about why a woman would watch a pig. Now, going back here real fast, some differences or similarities between this? And I thought, comparing you to me, here's an interesting similarity: is look what we're both watching. Here in the 1980s, MTV changes a lot. MTV was music television. Now it just feels like it's just another news channel. But when it first came out in the 1980s, it solely was a place where music videos were put on. There was no other opportunity to be able to go see them. There was a few things. So like I remember there was one show called Friday Night Videos. I would have to wait every Friday to go watch 2 hours of videos. That was it. I didn't get a pick. They picked which ones to watch. And now MTV comes around 24 hours a day. There is mostly music video and a couple other shows. And it radically changed things. I remember going over to my friend's house. We had to have a big viewing party to go see the biggest music video that had come out, which was Michael Jackson's Thriller. And it was just this cultural phenomenon that people talked about. So there's a similarity, is that the popularity of music videos is still unbelievably massive in terms of both in terms of both my generation and the current generation. Okay, so there's some similarities and differences. The music video is huge, and the idea people still love to consume, but things are radically changed with the YouTube stuff. All right, so let's jump forward here. What next now? All right, went a little deep on this whole the YouTube phenomenon thing. I want to bring it back and start talking about this lesson. And this lesson being this, folks. First off, another side video for you to watch. Really good video to watch this, about 8 tips about how to help you be more comfortable when you talk about when you're on camera. And it isn't necessarily just for news or sports or YouTubers or anything like that. So a really important one. Talk everything from like, what do I do with my hands? Should I whatever? Because it seems awkward. So watch this. I can't recommend that enough. Only 3.5 minutes there. All right. So the big takeaway from this one, everybody, is that the number one goal, no matter what you're trying to be able to do, is that you need to sound like you. I don't want you, if you're going to be doing a broadcast for our school, I don't want you to sound like a news reporter. Okay, I want you to sound like you. If you're going to be doing your own YouTube channel, you should sound like you. So that's your goal. You want to sound comfortable. You don't want to sound forced and such. So let's make that happen. And so where to be able to do this, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to all test this thing out. And this is where it's going to happen. You guys are going to go into our back room, the cave. A lot of you asked that question their first day in the class, is what is in the cave? Well, that's what the cave looks like. There's a couple different places where you can go film, and you can see some setups here. Here we have 2 things that are happening. One, we have our news anchor desk, which is a bit messy over there. And you can see we have a teleprompter set up, which we have a camera, you have a microphone attached that goes all the way over to here. And then the teleprompter that is on there. So, and you can't see it. Actually, there's the iPad right there, or the host. You put your script onto there, iPad goes underneath, and that's how it works. Or you can have the second approach here. Here you can have the host reading the bulletin of the day, and she's just talking directly into a camera with no teleprompter, and she's mic'd up. You can see it right there. That's called a lapel mic on her, and she is carrying her notes that she has just gone over a couple times and just read and talking into the camera. So those are the 2 different ones. All right, so here's what you got to do, which is this, everybody. I'm giving you a choice. You're going to talk into the camera. Everybody needs to try this, and let me just let you know that it may be uncomfortable. I'd like you to at least try. to see what it would be like. Nobody else is going to see this. It's just for you and me. So don't feel like this is something that's going to go on there. I have a couple, I have 3 choices to pick from. Well, number 1 and number 2 are just fake news stories. If you click on them, you open them up, it'll show you here's a fake sports story that is going to be on the teleprompter. You don't have to write. You just fill in and put your name in there. This is blank. And you'll just say your name and then you read the rest. But can I read with making it sound realistic, not like I'm doing in water polo? The Thunder has a huge game on Tuesday as they will take on the Grizzlies from Granite Bay. So we want to be natural in this. So you can do a sports story or you can do a news story. Those ones are already done for you and they'll be on the iPad. Or if you'd like, you can start practicing. Let's say you want to do your own little thing. All I'm asking for is that you write about 100 words. That's what you just saw in these 2 here. These are roughly about 100 words, only about a quarter of a page kind of a thing. Practice, no, but besides just talking, you should look them over. You don't need to memorize them, but you should read them a couple times ahead of time. And then when you're ready, go on there. So if you want to be able to vlog, let's say you want to do it like, hey, everybody, how to make a puppet or something like that. And then you're going to talk about who you are and what you do kind of a thing. If you're going to do that one, the iPad is set to this email address. So you'll have to make a document, Google Doc, and share it with this one. So then when you go in there, we can just bring that up. And the way this is going to work, everybody, is you're simply going to we'll go one at a time in here. Whenever you're ready, you let me know. We'll go into the cave. We'll get you set up on the teleprompter. You'll be sitting where Jillian is here. We'll have this set up here where the teleprompter is. And you'll just, you'll give this thing a read. And then what I'll do is afterwards, I'll share with you the video so that you're able to edit that and such. We'll talk about how to edit later. Anyway, so that's our lesson here, everybody, how to be able to talk to the camera. And good luck. Let me know if you got any questions.